let's talk about a pretty powerful idea. You are not your first reaction. Just let that sink in for a second. It's a concept that can seriously change how you think about yourself and your emotions. So, we're going to break down what it really means. Who hasn't been there, right? You have that flash of anger, that sharp comment just flies out of your mouth, and then almost immediately, this wave of regret just washes over you. You're just standing there thinking, where did that even come from? Because it doesn't feel like you. It doesn't feel like the person you actually want to be.
And here's the big secret. In that split second, it wasn't the real you in control. It was your body's ancient automatic threat response system that literally grabbed the steering wheel. But here's the good news. You can absolutely learn to get back in the driver's seat, and that's exactly what we're going to get into.
Okay, so first up, let's really dive into that moment, the reaction you regret. It's a feeling we all know, and getting familiar with it is actually the first step to changing the whole pattern. You know the internal script that plays out in your head? It's that immediate, oh, I didn't mean to say that, followed by that awful, sinking feeling of shame. It feels like you've been hijacked, like you're just a passenger in your own body watching things unfold. And deep down, all you really want is to just be a little bit calmer, a little more in control. So, if it's not really us, then what in the world is happening in those moments? Well, to get that, we need to take a look at your brain's own personal alarm system. This is the science behind why we snap. The official term for this is the amygdala hijack. So your amygdala, it's this little part of your brain that's always on the lookout for danger. And when it thinks it senses a threat, and it doesn't care if it's a real lion or just an emotional threat like feeling rejected, it yanks the emergency alarm. It floods your system with stress hormones before your logical brain can even ask, hey, what's going on? This happens because basically you've got two different systems competing in your head. Your emotional brain is all about speed. It's fast, it's protective, and it's totally automatic. Your thinking brain, on the other hand, is much slower, it's logical, it likes to consider things. So in what feels like an emergency, who do you think wins? Speed wins, every single time. Your protective brain acts before your thinking brain can even get its shoes on. And this explains that crazy disconnect we all feel. You can know, logically, that your friend being late for coffee is not a life-or-death situation, but if your amygdala reads it as a sign of disrespect or that you're not important, it can still react as if your very survival is on the line. Okay, so how do we actually work with this system instead of just being controlled by it all the time? Well, this brings us to a really, really useful concept called the window of tolerance. This is the state we're all aiming for. Think of the window of tolerance as your personal sweet spot. It's that zone where you feel grounded, you feel present. It's where you can handle the normal ups and downs of life without getting totally overwhelmed. You can think clearly, you can feel your emotions, and you can respond with thought. Now, when a trigger pushes you above that window, you go into hyperarousal. This is that classic fight or flight energy. It feels like panic or rage or just thoughts racing a million miles an hour. This is the state you're in when you snap at someone. And this is the goal. This is that optimal zone. Your nervous system is in what's called a rest and digest state. You feel calm, you feel connected to yourself and other people, and you're able to be responsive instead of just reactive. But you can also get pushed below the window. This is called hypoarousal, which is basically a freeze or shutdown response. This feels like numbness or emptiness or just being totally disconnected from everything. It's just another way our nervous system tries to protect us, by checking out completely. And this is so important. The goal isn't to be some kind of emotionless robot who never feels angry or sad. That's not realistic. The real goal is to build the skill of noticing when you've left your window of tolerance and then learning how to get back into it a little faster each time. All right, so we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get super practical. I'm going to give you a simple body-based reset that you can use right in the heat of the moment to find your way back into that window. It starts with understanding this number. Neuroscientists have figured out that the actual chemical rush of an emotion in your body from the moment it's triggered to when it fades lasts about 90 seconds. Anything you feel after that 90 seconds is you feeding the fire with a story. So if you can just ride that initial 90-second wave, you can stop the whole cycle. So here's how you do it. It's a simple 3-step process. First, name it. Just say to yourself, okay, I'm feeling rejected right now. Second, notice it. Where is that feeling actually living in your body? Is your jaw cleansed? Is your stomach in a knot? This brings you out of your head and into your body. And finally, Narrow it. Take a slow breath in, and then make your exhale even longer. A long, slow exhale is the fastest way to send a signal to your nervous system that says, hey, we're safe, stand down.
And here's a little pro tip for you. If you can, say it out loud. Just whisper it to yourself. This is a nervous system moment. Saying it out loud makes it external. It reminds you that this is a biological process, not some deep character flaw. It just takes the shame right out of it. See, by using that 90-second reset, you create this tiny but incredibly powerful space between the trigger and how you respond. And it's in that little space that you get to choose what you do next. Let's use a very modern and, let's be honest, a very common example. You send a text message to someone you care about, and hours later, you see those two little check marks. They've read it, but there's no reply. The contrast here is everything. Your brain's first automatic reaction is to jump to a story, they're ignoring me, they obviously don't care about me. And that story just fuels the emotional fire. But a regulated response, it uses that pause. You notice the feeling, you take that long exhale, and then you get to choose a different story. You know what? Maybe they're just busy. I can check in with them later. You get to decide from a place of calm, not from a place of panic. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. Your reactive patterns are fast because they're old habits, they're well-worn paths in your brain. Emotional regulation, on the other hand, is a new skill. It feels slower at first, and yeah, it takes conscious practice. But it's just like a muscle. It gets stronger every single time you use it. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. When you get hijacked, what's the main flavor of that emotion for you? Is it a hot flash of anger? Is it a cold wave of shame? Or is it a surge of fear? Just knowing your primary trigger is a huge first step in learning how to train your response.